As the threat from Russia continues to rise, NATO countries are increasingly working to prepare defense and deterrence. Just recently, the alliance has announced 5 new corridors to rapidly transfer Western troops and weapons to the eastern flank of NATO in case of Russian aggression. And the force, it's no joke either, 300,000 troops.
So now here to discuss whether Russian forces would even dare to take on the superior force is Jacek Raubo from Defense 24. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you for the invitation and good morning.
So now NATO is significantly enhancing its defensive posture. I feel like we can safely say now in response to the perceived Russian threat. And recently, NATO has developed new 5 land corridors to facilitate the rapid deployment of Western weapons and troops to Eastern Europe. But if you could unpack this for us, how significant are these for NATO's overall defense strategy in Europe?
Truly, we are watching a real revolution in thinking about the eastern flank and eastern flank defense. Not only in some aspects being dedicated to Poland. We need to remember that right now eastern flank is starting far north and it is going straight to the south. So it is a really complex structure which is building on, of course, the host nations, but also we need to remember that there is a lot of logistic issues we need to solve. And other thing is, of course, to have this interoperability between the different 32 member states armed forces and the structures which are supporting military actions. So the part of that is the logistic lines and moving some of our troops from one side of NATO to another. That's why this is a very crucial decision, and also it is highly with a synergy of other plans which been signed by NATO members during the last summit. So we see that this is the multi-layer and multi-aspect moves from the NATO members to have this tools of deterrence and defense when and where we need to have this kind of reinforcement or strengthen our posture. So I'm very optimistic and I'm very proud to see this kind of agreements and decisions inside a very difficult environment we are in right now. So one more thing, and one, I think, aspect which can describe where we are right now with NATO. The Finnish Air Force are training alongside allies in Romania. So we see that there is a lot of cohesion between the different members of NATO and also on the different perspectives on NATO. So this kind of moves are right now building a better place for deterrence and defense. But I really appreciate that you are emphasizing the role of moving troops, moving reinforcements, moving logistics. This is something which is necessary to build because we have a very strong division between the past and the present needs. Because before 2014, before 2022, the main aspect of Eastern flank was to have this capabilities to only train or to only have some smaller quick reaction forces to deal with some maybe lower crises below the threshold of war. Right now, we need to prepare more troops, we need to prepare more equipment, we need to prepare for more and larger potential conflicts in our region. We know very well this is the situation dedicated to the Russian imperial policy and overthrowing old post-Cold War security architecture in Europe. So it is a very optimistic information, and we see a very optimistic pictures coming from our Nordic partners and from NATO. I'm very happy to see this, and I'm very proud to be the part of NATO as a Polish citizen, and we need to accept that NATO is adapting and NATO is transforming.
It is, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. I think 10 years ago, nobody would imagine that plans to move 300,000 troops through 5 corridors to the eastern flank of NATO at different points.
90,000 troops train in NATO with the scale which was compared to only Cold War exercises like Reforger. So we have this capability and we are building more. We want to have more capabilities for long term. And this is, I think, an important message we need to underline to our viewers right now.
And also, say a decade ago, one of the biggest concerns was the actual time to transfer these weapons and troops to the eastern flank, and it was too long. Maybe you can shed some light on this because, you know, if we look at some of these press reports, it's really not stated, but as a military analyst, perhaps you know, how much is that deployment time or the response time to get from one side to the eastern flank, wherever it may be along the eastern flank, has that shortened dramatically? What kind of time frame are we looking like?
I suppose we are opening a gate to the field of discussion, which is not only dedicated to NATO as one structure in Europe. We are opening a new chapter in cooperation between European Union and NATO, because European Union is necessary for strengthening these capabilities to, for instance, move some of our equipment before the war, before the full-scale operation from the NATO side. And we need to accept that right now the biggest problem is maybe not the capabilities coming from the military side, but other things from the non-military structures. And the main issue is right now to fight this situation between peace and war. Why? Because we need to have a tool to use our forces to reinforce our, for instance, main forces on the eastern flank before the conflict started. Will start. So we need to have this synergy between the host nation. This is a very important role. Maybe one short remark. When we are thinking about the role of Poland on the eastern flank, generally we are describing this quality and quantity aspects dedicated to strength of our armed forces. We see, of course, Polish troops in Romania or in Latvia, but I think we are not underlining effectively the role of host nation. Host nation is this nation which need to invest in railway system, in harbors, in this road system, highways and other roads, which are necessary to, for instance, move troops which are coming to Poland, or which are only using Poland as a hub for other moves. Because when we think about this rapid and reinforcement of our troops from NATO side on the eastern flank, we need to remember the position of, for instance, the Baltic states, our neighbors. When we need to think about this new achievements inside NATO, we need to remember the role of Czech Republic. Of course, there is a lot of clandestine information, because we need to accept that some of the technical aspects need to be undercover for very visible facts. And we need to remember that we are still developing this. I remember very interesting discussions before full-scale Russian invasion on Ukraine in 2022. And a lot of Polish experts highlighted that NATO and NATO members would be not able to, for instance, use effective air transport or highway transport or railway transport to use, for instance, military assistance to strengthen Ukrainian armed forces. Right now, we see one of the largest operation dedicated to the military assistance in European history, and we are learning a lot of things. We are learning from Ukraine. We are learning from our own involvement, not
Right.
NATO, involvement of NATO members in this strengthening Ukrainians. And also we are learning from our own lessons learned coming from the practical side of NATO functioning. So
You're
I'm
absolutely
very
right. And
optimistic.
having that in mind also, now that we are learning now from Ukraine and now from each other within the NATO alliance and NATO framework, we do see that now Poland and Czech Republic, like you mentioned, understand the threat because they were under threat of, they were under now in Soviet Union times, they were very much under threat coming from Russia. So it also brings a different dynamic to the table. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on TVP World, and thank you for your insights.